Hello students, welcome back to NEET Academy. In the previous classes, we have seen an overview about the cell organelles. Today in our class, we will be seeing in detail the major cell organelle called as mitochondria. Now imagine a city without electricity. Nothing would work, isn't it? Similarly, a cell requires energy for many of its activity like growth, movement, transport, cell division, etc., etc., etc. Mitochondria is the organelle which produces energy. So we'll see the structure and function of mitochondria. Mitochondrion, singular, and in plural we call it as mitochondria. So we'll see in detail about mitochondria in today's class. Now let's begin our class for today. Okay, so let's begin our today's class. Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria, the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, so let us see what is the definition of mitochondria. Definition. Okay, so mitochondria, they are double membrane bound cell organelle that produce energy. Okay, that produce energy. Now energy in the form of what? ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, now how is this produced? Through cellular respiration. So mitochondria are double membrane bound cell organelle that produce energy in the form of ATP, and this ATP is produced through cellular respiration. Okay, so let us see now why is it called the, all of us know that mitochondria are called the powerhouse of the cell, isn't it? Mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell. Now why is it called powerhouse of the cell? Because it converts the energy stored in food molecules. Okay, it converts the energy stored in food molecules into ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate. Okay, this is called adenosine triphosphate. Now ATP, what is ATP now? ATP is also called as the energy currency. Okay, so why the mitochondria is called the powerhouse of the cell? Because it converts the energy stored in food into ATP. ATP is otherwise called adenosine triphosphate. In full form it is called adenosine triphosphate, and ATP is the energy currency of the cell. Why is it called the energy currency of the cell? Because it supplies energy for cellular activities. Okay, now we'll see what is cellular respiration. Okay, cellular respiration is the combination of food plus oxygen. Okay, this gives you ATP plus carbon dioxide plus water. Now this process, conversion of food into energy molecule and carbon dioxide and water in the presence of oxygen, is called as cellular respiration. Okay, so you must know what is cellular respiration. It is the chemical conversion of food in the presence of oxygen to ATP, which is an energy currency of the cell, and carbon dioxide and water molecule. Okay, right. So this is about the ATP molecule. Now let's talk about certain scientists who were involved in the discovery of ATP molecules, mitochondria. Okay, scientist involved in the discovery of mitochondria. Mitochondria. Okay, so we'll see. This is an important question when you talk about NEET exams. Okay, so usually NEET students are tested with this. Okay, so we'll see. First scientist was Richard Altman. Altman. A-L-T-M-A-N-N. Altman. Richard Altman. Okay, now he was the first person to observe. First person who observed mitochondria in the year 1890. Richard Altman. Richard Altman in the year 1980. He was the first person who observed mitochondria. Okay. Second scientist is Carl Benta. Carl Benta. Carl Benta. Okay. He was the person who coined the term mitochondria. Okay, now he is the person who coined the term mitochondria in the year 1898. Okay, Richard Altman saw for the first time in 1890. Carl Benta, B-E-N-D-A, Benta. Carl Benta in the year 1898 was the person who coined the term mitochondria. Okay, hope it's clear. So we'll move on to the next topic of mitochondria, which is the structure of mitochondria. The structure of mitochondria. Structure of mitochondria. Right? We'll see the structure of mitochondria now. The structure is usually rod or else oval shaped. The structure of mitochondria is rod or else oval shaped. Okay, three basic structure seen in mitochondria. First is the outer membrane. Outer membrane. Now this outer membrane is smooth membrane. Okay, it is a smooth membrane and it covers and protects the organelle. Its function is to cover and protect the organelle and structure. The texture, when you see, it is smooth in texture. Second is the inner membrane. Inner membrane. Okay, now when you see the inner membrane, this inner membrane, it has the folded inward. Inner membrane is folded inward to form cristae. Okay, to form the structure called as cristae. Okay, now why is it folded? To increase the surface area. Okay, to increase the surface area, this inner membrane is usually folded. Now why do we have to increase the surface area? Because this inner membrane is the one which is responsible for the production of ATP, or else the inner membrane possesses the enzymes for the production of ATP. Hope you got it. Okay, so it's clear, right? The inner membrane is folded to increase the surface area of the mitochondria. Now why do we have to increase the surface area? Because we need lots of energy production. Now that's the main function of mitochondria. Okay, now let's see the next structure present is matrix. Now this matrix is fluid filled inner space. Okay, it's a fluid filled inner space, contains enzymes, DNA, RNA and ribosomes. Okay, DNA, RNA and ribosomes. Right? So matrix is the fluid filled inner space. It contains the enzymes, DNA, RNA, ribosomes, etc. of the organelle. Okay. So now let's try and draw the structure of the mitochondria. I told you it's a doubled membranous organelle. So we'll draw a double membrane. So let us imagine this is your outer membrane, which is the mitochondrial membrane. Okay, now this is your internal membrane. Okay, which I told you it's folded inward to form what structure? A structure called as cristae. A structure called as cristae. So you can see when you fold it inward, it is increasing its surface area. Now this obviously the surface area of the inner membrane is much more than the surface area of the outer membrane, isn't it? Okay. Now apart from that, it has the matrix. Matrix is what? The internal structure, fluid filled internal structure. It has the DNA molecule. Okay. So this is your DNA of the mitochondria. Okay. It has ribosomes scattered here and there in the structure. And of course the fluid filled inner matrix. Okay. So let us now try and label this diagram. This is the outer membrane. Outer membrane. Okay. The red one is the inner membrane. Okay. Now this is a fluid filled structure called as matrix. These are your ribosomes. Okay. This is your DNA. The mitochondrial DNA. Okay. And where is the cristae? The important structure? The inner foldings. This is the cristae. The inner membrane is folded inward to form a structure called as cristae. Yes, students? I hope it's clear. Right? So we have seen the structure. It has got inner membrane which is smooth and protects the organelles. The outer membrane which is smooth and protects the organelle. The inner membrane which is folded inward and forms the cristae. And why is it folded inward? To increase the surface area. It has matrix which is a fluid filled inner surface, inner space, which contains enzymes, DNA, RNA and ribosomes. So that's your matrix. That's your mitochondria. Now let us see the next topic of mitochondria, which is the function. Okay, so function of mitochondria. Function of mitochondria. Function, so major function, all of you know, I am sure you are all saying it loud and clear. It's ATP production. It's ATP production. Apart from that, it also carries out the cellular respiration. Okay, cellular respiration, all of you know the definition. Conversion of food in the presence of oxygen to ATP, carbon dioxide and water. It is also responsible for regulation of cellular activities like metabolism. Okay, it is also an organelle which is responsible for the heat production. Heat production which is important in certain animals. Okay, certain animals and newborns. You might have seen the newborn babies are usually they have a higher temperature when compared to the adults. So that's because mitochondria is involved in the production of heat. Okay. Apart from this major function, let us go into some special features. Special feature of mitochondria. Okay. Special feature of mitochondria. So what is the special feature? It has its own DNA. That's very special, right? It has got its own DNA. So cell contains mitochondria, mitochondria contains its own DNA. Now it also has its own ribosomes, and these ribosomes are responsible for the production of synthesis of some of the proteins. It is also self-replicative. It can carry out its own replication, so it is self-replication, so can divide independent of the cell, so it doesn't require the help of the cell to divide. Okay, now because of these features, it is also called as semi-autonomous organelle. Imagine an organelle is semi-autonomous, that is, it can produce its own certain proteins, it can divide of its own, and it has its own DNA to carry out all these functions. Okay, so that's about the special feature of the mitochondria. Now, have you heard about the endosymbiotic theory of mitochondria? Symbiosis, all of you know, it's a mutual relationship, a positive relationship, or as you can say a mutual beneficial relationship between the two. Okay, so endosymbiotic theory. Now here certain scientists believe that this mitochondria was a small bacteria. Once upon a time, this mitochondria was a small bacteria. Okay, now at one point of a time, a very primitive cell started engulfing this mitochondria. Okay, now once it started engulfing this mitochondria, this bacteria, which was supposed to be the bacteria, this bacteria was inside this primitive cell, and these two, that is this bacteria and this primitive cell, they both shared a beneficial symbiotic relationship, and this is why they kept on, this bacteria kept on staying inside this primitive cell, and now we call this bacteria as a mitochondria. Okay, now this is how it became a mitochondria. Mitochondrion is a singular, mitochondria is a plural. Okay, now what is the evidence of this theory? This is called endosymbiotic. Endo, that is engulfing, symbiotic, both of them having the mutual beneficial relationship. Okay, endosymbiotic theory. Okay, so what is the evidence of this endosymbiotic theory? Because this mitochondria, which was supposed to be a bacteria once upon a time, has its own DNA. Okay, has its own DNA, has its own ribosome and independent replication, and also double membranous in structure. So usually organelles are double membrane, single membrane structure, but then mitochondria is a double membranous structure. Okay, so that's the reason why mitochondria is said to be a to follow the endosymbiotic theory. Okay, now imagine where can we find mitochondria in large numbers. Okay, in large numbers, where can we find mitochondria in large numbers? Now this can be found in cells that perform continuous work and need large amount of ATP. Now obviously these kind of cells are muscle cells, heart cells, liver cells. So these are the cells which keep on doing its function. They perform its function continuously and this is why we need them in large number. So these cells have large number of mitochondria because they can independently divide of their own. They can increase in their number. Okay, hope you love the class, students. Do like, share and follow BA NEET Academy for more such videos. Thank you for watching.
So in today's class, we have seen in detail about the structure and function of mitochondria. A very important feature of mitochondria being a double membrane, has its own DNA, has its own ribosome, multiply of its own, so hence called as semi-autonomous organelle. A very important factor or very important feature of mitochondrion, singular, isn't it? Okay. Follow VA NEET Academy for more such videos which will be helpful for you to crack NEET 2027. Follow, like and share.